Welcome. Today is August 6th, 2020. This is the SIG Instrumentation biweekly meeting. We have a couple things on the agenda. The first is Lori Apple to talk to us about triage workflows. Is Lori here?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, so I'm Lori. I don't think I know most of you. So I know Alana from a Cube Friends call, and Han and I have talked a bit about things on Slack. So hi. I am a program manager by trade and also through the work that I do in Kubernetes. And so I joined up around April or so, early April, and Paris Pittman had me look at PR velocity and how to speed that up. She said, here's an issue for someone like you to take over and look at. And so that led me to the big and broad and magical world of many other things in Kubernetes, including the release team and the release cycle. And so now I'm the program manager for the SIG release and release team, and then also helping out with release engineering. And so triage has been a hot topic since I got here because PR velocity is not as rapid and there's not as high of a turnaround as many people in the community and project would like to see. So I've been pitching to the chairs and leads, the tech leads, what they might want to do to bring triage into the SIGs. So there are a couple SIGs already doing triage. API machinery does. Release is getting process ramped up. And then I think cluster API also does, cluster lifecycle does triage, and I think SIG docs. And so then I was asking, does instrumentation do triage? And maybe this is where you can provide some input from your experiences, like how you actually get work into your workflow. How do you schedule work? How do you get it moving? So
triage has been on our to-do list for a really long time, but we actually, I don't think we ever properly went through the process of doing it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Han. I think we had it on our agenda once, but I wasn't able to make it to that call.
Yeah.
Did we actually do it that day?
We did.
Okay.
So in API machinery, we do it twice a week, but the volume of PRs and issues is probably 2 or 3 times greater. Yeah, we don't actually have a process for it right now. We probably should have a process for it. We probably don't need it bi-weekly because the volume differences, but weekly might make sense. I have not used.
Oh, go ahead, please.
I haven't used Triage Party, but I was hoping you might be able to tell us about it.
Yeah, let me pull up the link for that, and then Triage Party. So I'll just post it in the channel. And actually, if the host can maybe broadcast it on the call, that would be.
Oh, you know what? Actually, why don't we make you a host and then
That's okay.
Share.
I just put the link. I put the link in the chat, so I think it's fine. If you are able to just share the screen for a second.
I find this here. Let me. I made you a co-host because I am not sure what I am looking at.
Okay.
Oh.
So let me share. I'll just do this. I'll put it on my screen.
Oh, right.
Where did it go? Here we go. Okay, so a disclaimer is that I haven't actually used this triage party tool yet, like in a triage session. It just got set up for the release team, and so then now we will figure out some details around how to set it up for our own use case. And so I've been talking to Thomas Stromberg, who's created this, about the details and what that might look like. But
do you mind zooming in a little bit, because the page is super wide?
Sure.
Thank you.
So basically, as he's saying, this is like multiplayer triage. So if we go to the link, you can see an example. I think that, oh, this might go, yeah, that goes to the actual project. So here you go. Here's the actual triage party setup for Minikube. And there are different ways to actually prioritize work. So here's your headers, unprioritized issues older than 5 days. And then you can see like other details around these items, including the labels and the tags. And then uncommented older than 5 days is another section. Scroll down. So it looks like we have a lot of those. A lot of those. Then important long-term, but no updates in 4 months. Pull requests ready, review ready. So basically, like, what are some intervals and some markers for taking work from one stage to the next? And so I think this is fairly open to customization. So if there are particular things that you're looking out for, or it's just certain language that you use around how you like to describe the stage that a piece of work is in, then you could get that. So the idea here is it kind of looks like Jira, if you've noticed, having lists of things that are in a certain status category, but it's also bringing in very Kubernetes specific elements like the way that we're labeling and the commenters and these other details. So that's one way that you can triage. Another way, if you don't want to go full triage party, is just by using a GitHub project board. Are you doing that?
No, we were planning on using the needs triage auto labeling thing. I think that was like, there's some cap where basically there's going to be a needs triage label added automatically to PRs. Mm-hmm. And then the expectation would be that triage would occur semi-regularly, and then you would remove the label once it's been triaged, which is a simple but easy to use mechanism. So about triage party, this is hosted somewhere, so someone has to provision this for us, right?
I'm not sure, like, as I said, I haven't actually pursued all the details of how you get set up, but we can find that out.
I was just looking at the links at the bottom, and it looks like you deploy it to a Kubernetes cluster and then look at it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, where?
Right, I don't know.
So, what you can do is there's actually a demo that Thomas gave at the June community meeting, and I can dig that up for you, and I can also watch it again to answer those questions. It's not, I've got lots of other things that I've got on my mind on this project, and that's the one of the details that I just would leave to someone else. But yeah, it's he has all of that, and so we can provide that information for you. But it's mainly like whether such a tool would be useful to your group, or even if it's just overkill. It all depends on the size of your workflow.
Does anyone have like strong opinions about which way we do this?
I don't have strong opinions on it. I think we just need to get into a regular cadence of actually doing it. And I think the tooling we can figure out kind of then. I would start with as little tooling as possible, and then like try to see if tooling would be helpful for our process. But that's just me. I don't really feel strongly about it. If people like want to try out these tools, I'm totally up for that.
Do you want to see some things that I'm doing with the GitHub, with the release engineering GitHub project board? Because it's nothing. Cool. It's nothing amazing, but it can give you some ideas around what you might want to do, what you might need to do, to get your workflow in better shape. So here's just a sample from release engineering. So here they've cataloged their done for 119 items. That's a lot, so it looks like they've been pretty productive. And then having a blocked column. So this is more straightforward in a company, I think, than it is in an open source context, because there's different ways of work being blocked. Sometimes you need docs to make the work cross the finish line. Sometimes you need a review. Sometimes you need lots and lots of other things with no known date of completion to happen before your item gets unblocked. So it seems to be a little messier in open source. Because there's a lot fewer people minding process typically in a project. So, but for our purposes, we'd start with just a straight up simple blocked column, which means blocked by, needs others to do things with code. Then review in progress. This is so that you can track, obviously, how many, where is it? It's in review, but it's not done yet. And then in progress. And what we're finding in release engineering is that a lot of the in progress items haven't really been in progress for several months. So in progress is rather fluid. So we need to look at what that means. Does it mean it's just taking a long time to get done? Or is it work that's actually stopped and we would want to guide it elsewhere or try to figure out a different way to get it across the finish line? Or do we even really need it anymore because it's so old that a lot has changed since then? So this is what I'll probably be spending my time with the release engineering folks doing in 2 weeks, and in their next meeting is looking at this column in particular, or these two, I should say, because this is the column then where we go to the stuff that hasn't been touched in more than 2 weeks and say like, well, what is its status? And so if you have a lot of items like this where you're really not sure, and there's just a lot of volume, then you could create columns like this to separate what's actively being worked on and then what is not being actively worked on that you want to take a second look at and dig deeper. And then we're trying to get to a sense where we have themes that multiple people could work on at one given time so that they could actually swarm instead of just doing work individually. And so this is where you're going to see some of these themed columns. So here's a bunch of high priority work. So this is work that's been vetted through some triaging that's done manually and in person. So in small groups. And in this particular group, it was Stephen, Tim, Sasha, and Jorge from release team. And so here are 3 themes of work that would, if they were finished, they would free up other work to be done. So we've identified those and I've created columns for them. And then this might actually go folded back into one of these more general topics once we've cleared out those general topics and made them more meaningful so that in progress work is actually in progress.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Sure.
Are these columns done by GitHub labels, or do you manually move boxes around this UI?
So for the moment, these particular columns are all manual. And what we started talking today about how we would use labeling to recreate the same categorization without using columns. But until that is worked on and in place, we have these kind of spin up, tear down columns. It's easy to make them, and if you just feel comfortable knowing that you'll tear them down, that you won't have like 15 columns at any given time, you can use them as a temporary self-organizer.
This looks terrific. We have other items on the agenda, so we should probably
yeah, I would just one thing on these is that when you have themed items like this, then ideally you could create one issue with the sub items as a checklist, and then you have kind of like the epic format in your workflow. And so that can help you triage as well. By with the checklist, you can watch the items as they get completed and cross them off. and they'd also be in your project boards. You have 2 points of visibility for monitoring your own workflow. So
can you put one PR in 2 different columns, or one issue in 2 different columns? Is that possible?
I don't think so. I mean, no, I don't think so. I think it has to be in one place, because there's also, you can actually automate so that when work shifts from nothing's being done to it to then somebody picks it up and starts working on it, you can have that automated so that it goes to an in progress column. And then when it's ready for review, then again, automation can kick that item from in progress to needs review. So I think the way that these are set up is, one item in one place. However, you can have one item in multiple project boards.
Okay. I will poke around with it a little bit.
Okay.
And maybe somebody else can poke around with Triage Party, and then we can like regroup in the recurring meeting. Thank you so much for going over our triage options and nudging us to actually do a recurring triage thing, because we really need it.
I think the project board sounds like the simplest for you right now, just to get you going. And also, if your workload isn't that heavy, it's probably the way that I would go. Just keep it lightweight and fewer columns than I showed you.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Right.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you.
Yay.
Bye.
Next up, we have Yu-Chen and Sally. They're going to be showing us something that we worked on. Sally?
All right. Actually, Yu-Chen, are you around too? Do you want to pull up the demo video you prepped? But basically, the idea is we have this problem where we have a lot of metrics, and we have metrics tooling configured to collect the metrics, but there's a lot of metrics that we have that are either too high cardinality, or we don't collect at the right resolution sometimes, or whatever. And for whatever reason, we've aggregated them or dropped them when they go into our collection pipeline. And so sometimes we want to go in and debug a particular cluster with these metrics, but we don't have access to them at the fidelity that we need. And so we developed this new tool that basically allows you to connect to a particular Prometheus endpoint and directly run queries against the resulting data. So basically, instead of ingesting them into a Prometheus server or some other tooling that can read the Prometheus format, it just loads them in memory, and then you can use the Prometheus, basically a in-memory version of the Prometheus query engine, to run queries and either immediately and get the outputs, or over time and see a graph in your terminal. So Yu-Chen has prepared a demo, I believe, a demo video. And
I need to make Yu-Chen a co-host, sorry.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Which one? Okay. So hello everyone, I'm Yu-Chen from Google. I'm working with Sally and Han on PromQ recently, and it's my first time joining this community meeting. So I'm happy to be here and demo our fancy tool, PromQ. So basically, I have recorded this video yesterday, so make sure I won't miss some important things today, and I'll focus on explanation. And so I have already started a Kubernetes cluster on GKE and set up the proxy. So usually the way we access metrics info is to fetch the thing from the metrics endpoint, like we tracing from matrix endpoint. So we'll get the full list of the matrix information. But it's hard to grab the information, especially you want to focus on some specific metrics. So maybe you can do some further thing with the grep, but it's still like this way. If we wanted to fetch these things, specifically start with work queue, we can just add it as a regular expression. And yeah, we can get the information, or we can do further and add more filter and say we can group the work queue metrics with the name set to non-structured schema, condition controller, whatever. Yeah, we can get the information, but it is far from enough. Basically, we have to know how the matrix dimension looks like, or even the value of the label before we really wanted to curate. And we cannot make use of some useful Prometheus query feature like aggregation, or query a range of data, or do some functional count. So that's the reason we wanted to introduce PromQ. I have the PromQ binary under my directory. So if we run PromQ without any flag, we will basically get the same information as a Q or the matrix endpoint, but in JSON format. If we run it with a with L flag, which is short term for list, we will fetch the list of the metrics. By default, the metrics we use the kube config, the current context of the kube config. So we don't need to set the config specifically for PromQ. It's really helpful. We can switch the context with config. So, but you can change the Prometheus target with -t command, and with -q flag we can do query. So here you can enter whatever arbitrary query you want. Say if we wanted to query on API server, it's request count, then we will get the information in JSON format. We can do further. We can curate the API server request count metrics with the code set to 409. It's still in JSON format. If you don't like JSON, you can curate out with YAML format with OYAML flag, and then definitely you'll get to the YAML result. We also consider to keep the Prometheus original format. We may implement it later. I think the brightest spot of our PromQ is that we can run query continuously with -c flag. See here, I use the previous query, but with the C flag, then we will get the fancy graph. It is continuously fetch the information from the metrics endpoint, and basically it's like we are monitor on this metrics with this query. So it is very useful if you want to monitor on something. Another annoying thing about query is like we can't really always remember the metrics name correctly and type it correctly without any typo. So we provide auto completion support. So say here, if we type in, wait, the video is too slow. If we type in API, then the metrics with the API as a prefix will pop out. The left part is the metrics name, the right part is the dimension of this metrics. So here we can plot the metrics. API server version 1 total metrics. Also, the auto completion is done with early parser, which is a top-down dynamic programming algorithm, which is fit perfectly for auto completion. And we, like solid side, we store the metrics dimension, the label, and the EO value in memory, so we can provide a suggestion with this one. Since we already add we already covered all the PromQL feature in our early parser grammar. So basically, you can write whatever query, and we will provide you the right suggestion. So here, if we want to do the aggregation expression, we can type in sum, and we will get the sum as the suggestion. And the next part after the aggregation operator is the matrix. So if we type in API, and we will get the matrix. And the next part is followed by the label of this matrix. So we'll get the label of the API server version 1 total. And the left part is the label, the right part is the potential value of this label. And here we choose version. And then we can choose the potential value. It actually narrowed down the possibility you make typo mistake. And the followed by the sum clause is the aggregation keyword by will result, and followed with a list of label. Yeah, here there go we plotting out the graph of this query. I'll give one more example here. We can also do functional call. If you wanted to rate the API server version 1 total metrics in 5 minutes, yeah, this is the functional of from here, and the left part is the function, and the right part is the explanation of this function. We choose 5 and followed by the time unit. And yeah, there go we got this graph. So that's basically all I want to share today. Yeah, it's all about my table.
Cool. Thank you, Yu-Chen. So yeah, we have this on a local fork, but we are going to merge it into Instrumentation Tools, the SIG repo. We have a failing test, and we want to fix it before we do that. So hopefully today. So yeah, I hope people poke around and look at it. We have one more item, but Frederick, sorry.
No worries. This is more of an announcement than anything else. A couple meetings ago, we kind of had rough consensus around adopting the Kubernetes Prometheus adapter as a subproject of SIG Instrumentation. 2 weeks ago, I sent out the actual formal request for this. And as per our governance, lazy consensus has succeeded. So that means we are now free to actually make the move, and the project is an official sub-project. Thank you so much, Solly, for starting this project and being willing to donate it, I guess. Yeah, very awesome.
Of course, just let me know when you need me to initiate the project transfer or whatever, so you can keep all the issues and stuff.
Fantastic. Will do. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, I think that's it for today's meeting. We are out of time. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.